The new flavor original actually better with salt in it.
Yeah, it's because the new flavor original is tripe. It's Did not have orange, though.
No, not the orange. I love the pink lemonade. But the
You're a big fan of the pink lemonade. You're an early adopter as well.
I was.
10 viewers and 1 like. 1 like.
Are you like trying to?
What's happening?
Trying to insult us? We're on here.
We don't have to be here. Like,
yeah, we don't like 10 viewers and 5 likes. That's crazy.
11 viewers,
7 likes. We're doing our best to help you guys, and we can't even get a like.
Can't even
get a like. We can't even get a like. 15 viewers and 12 likes.
Says any yolks? Any yolks? No.
Any yolks, kid?
Any yolks? No. Do let us know if there's any audio or visual issues. The lifting gamer.
Do I look like a set of yolks?
Yeah. Especially when you've the strapping on your finger. Druggies are always getting injured. Like,
they are actually, because it's usually their bones though. They're always breaking arms and shit.
Yeah.
Because their bones are so brittle from the malnutrition. 16, that's great.
There we go. Excited to do the back squats 5x5 later today. Get after it. JNL 97 wants to know, are we both still doing jiu-jitsu? We sure are. Garth got injured last night, so
I ruptured a tendon in my finger. We were doing takedown, so just you queue up, and if you take some down, you stay in the circle, and if you get taken down, you go back to the queue. And I was taking down blue belts, took down 3 of them. They were immaculate takedowns, but someone squashed their head into the back of my finger and stretched the extensor tendon too far, and now I have to wear a splint for 6 weeks. But it was worth it though. Taking down blue belts, no joke. And they were sweet takedowns as well. But yeah, so still doing jiu-jitsu, but it was a Brazilian doctor, and he was like, "No jiu-jitsu, man," and I was like, "No jiu-jitsu," and he was like, "No jiu-jitsu." So I was like, I can still do drills and stuff,
Yeah.
So I give it a few.
You'll be
days.
grand.
Yeah. Are there any odd objects you guys actually recommend as a lifelong moron? They're extremely appealing to me. I always liked kegs. I really liked kegs because you still have somewhat of a handle. The issue with kegs is often kind of to be a little bit sharp, so you just need to sort that out a little bit. Kegs or sandbags, I think, are pretty legitimate objects. I don't like the stuff like, things like Atlas stones and stuff. If you're not doing strongman, you're not in ball of gear, it's just not super productive.
I like the odd object training for like off season or for pre-season pieces, where the stuff you're doing doesn't matter too much. It's just kind of work capacity, making yourself tired, building some general base. But the kind of nature of that then is that no one particular object is better than the other, really, whether it's a keg or whatever it is. It's just a big, awkward piece of equipment. I actually trained for a good while with gas bottles, kegs
are the biz.
Pallets, an old long piece of scaffolding pipe that I used to hang gas bottles off the side of. And that was through like necessity, not necessarily through, this is going to be a great unstable piece of equipment for you to train with. But I'd be much more of the mindset now that people would be better just doing like the really fundamental basic stuff, even if it was only twice a week that they were able to get to the gym, even if they were able to do 6 days a week with the other stuff.
I think he just wants to do random stuff.
If you just want to do random stuff, just get loads of really weird things.
Because he said lifelong moron, So
yeah, that's fair enough.
Like I'd probably get like a 1-inch dumbbell. I get like a duck walk.
1-inch dumbbell.
1-inch grip.
1 inch is like that.
1 inch fucking radius or circumference. Yeah, 1 inch or 2 inches maybe. No.
2 inches is the inside of a plate. So 2 inches.
2-inch dumbbell. I'd probably get the duck walk handles. I try to get some kind of sled or a prowler thing. If that's kind of thing you
love a sled or a prowler.
Yeah.
That would be a very, very good piece of equipment. And the other thing is you could do like rearward walking. You can do bear crawls with them. You can obviously do the walks forward with them. There's just so much stuff you can do, and particularly if it's a well-designed sled. you'll be able to do a sled push or a sled pull, or you could do like seated pulls.
You need a good place to be, you know. Hot Sauce says 9-month-old daughter, so doing a lot of 18-pound static holds. Will my biceps be jacked by the time she graduates college? I'm not sure what the latest research is saying on isometrics. Maybe though, by the time she graduates college. I would hope you'd stop holding her by the time she gets to college, and hopefully she's more than 18 pounds by the time she gets to college as well.
That could be a bigger issue.
That could be the bigger issue. That's your bigger worry right there, sir. Owen, how do I QB twice as fast? Are you suggesting the Facebook like, are you referring to purely getting under the bar? No, moving faster. Everything goes faster. Twice as fast. Don't focus so much on the word twice as fast. I just want you to go faster. The barbell needs to be faster, and you need to go faster. The whole thing, you know, it's
you know what? One of the best ways of doing that will be to actually try and train with faster people than you. A lot of time in weightlifting, we'll have started in like a CrossFit gym, or you'll start with a few other people, and people aren't really of a higher level. Like once you start training with people who are much better than you and are much faster than you, suddenly you'll say, "Oh, that's what real speed is," and you'll start emulating that much more. But as Gareth said, you just need to go faster. Like there's not like a kinesthetic cue or a verbal cue you
just
can
go
give.
faster.
You just need to go faster. Just do it. And try your fucking hardest to go faster.
Listen, when I'm walking down the street, I don't suddenly start sprinting. In the same way with barbells, I don't suddenly lift them faster, especially weightlifting, unless I try and lift them faster. It's the same thing. You have control of your speed, and you won't get faster unless you try to get faster. And then you need to put in that speed, you know.
Particularly in weightlifting as well, when you've put in so much effort into learning the movement of the lift and the positions of the lift, and everything is slow because you have to go slow because that's the only way you can hit the position, and then you have to move from those positions to the next one, and that movement is quite slow because you're making sure you're in the correct position when you get there. Going fast, you have to learn the same way as getting your knees back out of the way, but it's just not beneficial to go fast from the very, very start. So it is something you'll really have to concentrate on. It's something you'll have to actively push towards.
Yeah, so going fast doesn't mean bad timing. It just means better timing, but still faster. So correct timing, correct sequencing, but faster to each one of those sequences. Visual glitch, there's a red fridge in the frame. I'm with you on team. Eugene saying, I'm with you on team split for weightlifting, but our power jerk's better for real athletes, easier to learn, no need to max in comp. The only real athletes that would actually get power jerks, or any kind of jerk, at all, really are probably some kind of throwers. Then it would probably come down to a case-by-case basis. So some of those throwers just might not be able to get the split jerk, or some of them are just horses, and it'd be a lot easier for them to do power jerks. So if someone came to us with that particular issue, you'd be like, oh, look, he can power jerk 180 or split jerk 170 or something. So you just be like, it doesn't really matter at that stage. But everyone else doesn't really get its jerks, you know. No other athletes gets any kind of split jerk or power jerk like that. Certainly overhead work for sure, but not split jerk. So it would really come down to the athlete then, you know, what they kind of preferred, you know, especially if they were more advanced thrower, if they were later on in their career.
That's the thing. A lot of time when they're coming to us, they'll have some experience in weightlifting in general, you know, and they'll be able to, like, a lot of rugby players they might have, say, 25% of their time might be spent where that overhead work is quite fast, and they might do a split jerk or a power jerk or something like that. And in the case where someone is completely unlearned in weightlifting, that becomes a fast push press. And then maybe after a number of iterations of that fast push press becomes a power jerk, or else they have previous experience and it's a split jerk from the start, or it's a power jerk from the start.
You should also probably look at the qualities of what are you getting from jerks that an athlete needs. So obviously that's a similar motion, explosive motion, speed, strength, or power for a thrower. So they need that. What other qualities do you get from jerks? You get basically the other main thing you'd get is going under a barbell. So speed under something, or contracting and relaxing as fast as possible. That's kind of what you do the snatch and clean jerk for. So do other athlete needs that? Certainly all athletes can do with a shorter interval between contractions. If they can speed that up so they can go faster, is the jerk the best to do that? Probably not. There's other ways of getting about that. But
Christian Fagan wants you to tape your fingers together like Spock.
No, I got my little finger sled. Yeah.
It's a lovely little thing, isn't it?
They were like, "I'm gonna get you a special splint,
A special one.
a special splint," and then they came out with the finger slide. So just have to keep it like this. They're saying up to 6 weeks, but
You'll be grand.
might be a little bit sooner, hopefully.
Oscar Blood wants to know, what's the worst injury you've ever gotten?
Tearing my rhomboids was the worst experience I've ever had. Tendinopathy in my thumb was the most impactful on my lifting in a negative way. Rhomboids was the most debilitating. They were not good. That was not okay.
Yeah. I'd say definitely the ruptured discs in my neck were probably the scariest injury I've ever had.
I didn't know you ruptured discs in your neck.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
But by far the one that had the biggest impact on my life was traumatic brain injury. And that's why I'm here talking to you guys.
Oh, we're okay now.
Hey,
USA.
Yeah, definitely the brain injury thing was very bad for a while.
If I can extend my top finger, my baby finger, top joint in a few weeks, hopefully there won't be anywhere on the list.
Daniel Villavas says, yesterday I did week 7, day 2, 2x2 at 114%.
Wow!
Thanks for the awesome program. Yes.
USA. Okay. What's your opinion on jailhouse strong rocking form of cardio?
I have no idea.
Don't know what that is. Should I get a new rifle for deer hunting or combo reverse hyper in GHD? Get a new rifle.
This is
What do you
this,
shoot?
well, this really.
What are you using at the moment?
This is a complex question.
Yeah.
If you have something at the moment that's like doing the job,
Yeah.
but you want to spend $7,000 or $8,000 and get yourself really nicely set up.
The GHD and reverse hyper is a couple of grand, like, so I've seen you're getting
a couple of grand, yeah.
You're getting something a nice gun.
So
there.
you could be talking about like
a German or a Japanese gun there.
Yeah, you could be talking about a Tika T3 or maybe a second-hand Sacco or something along those lines. So hard to know.
What are the Blazers going for?
Blazers around 3.5.
You can get that. Those GHDs and reverse hypers are expensive.
It depends. Yeah, it really depends how much money you want to spend, and also it depends if you're buying a rifle with a scope, or just a rifle on its own. Because a rifle with a scope, you're talking about you'll get a very snazzy GHD for the price of a rifle with the scope.
Think about it this way, right? You can Jimmy rig a reverse GHD, but you can't. You can't Jimmy rig a Blazer.
No,
so I'm just saying
you can't. And if you've like a friend who's good at welding, they'll make a GHD for you or a reverse hyper in an afternoon for a few £100. For a few €100.
Won't make a Blazer though.
There's no way they'll make a Blazer or a Schmidt & Bender scope or anything like that.
No,
it won't happen. Wendell, I'm
on Team Rifle as well.
I'm heavily on Team Rifle, and I'm
USA.
I'm really on the team of investing heavily.
Yeah.
Okay. James Dillon Fulbright says, I'm squatting this evening, and you'll see the results of your advice from the Facebook chat. Who are some athletes I could watch and utilize their posterior chain very effectively in the squat? I rarely give a really specific example, right? Because what I want everybody to be as close to the normal as possible. So if you take, for example, somebody who leans over a lot in their squat, who's the nutrition guy?
Who leans over him?
If it fits your macros guy, what's his name?
Ryan Reynolds.
No. What's his name? Oh my God.
Guy who's always belligerent.
People are roaring at. His girlfriend has a YouTube. What is it? Anyway, if we give people the Lane Norton. If I say Lane Norton leans over a lot in his squat and he really uses posterior chain, then you're bringing someone once again away from the mean and away from the middle of that bell curve. And that seems like that initially seems to make sense, right? I want to alter my movement in a certain way, so I'll emulate this person who alters it in that way, and now they're a hyper responder, or they respond well to that kind of training, but they're away from the mean, and maybe I'll try and pull myself up there. I think everybody who trains, everybody who looks to make a technical alteration should be technically altering their form in the squat, the deadlift, the snatch, in towards the center of that bell curve. Even if even if over here is really posterior dominant and we're telling you to use your posterior chain more, I won't tell you to go and look at somebody like Lane Norton who's very posterior dominant, because you're pulling yourself away from the normal. And then if we get a different issue pops up in your squat, we'll have to go once again away from the normal. So I like to recommend watching people who have very good normal squats. Shane Hunt is probably my favorite powerlifter at the moment to tell people to go and watch. I would be watching Shane Hunt.
Christian said, I made a tick dumbbell out of pipe already. I do have the duckwalk handles AMO. I'm a wrestler, also which I find the odd object transfer well. Just started RTA last night. Thanks, fellas.
That would transfer really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably do sandbag carries, really heavy sandbag carries for, 10 meters or something like that.
Do you know what you could also do?
Yeah.
You could get a length of drain pipe, like solid plastic drain pipe, cap it at both ends, fill it with sand or gravel, something that will move in the middle of it, and then doing something just like a farmer's walk with that on your shoulder.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's like suitably awkward, and you get a lot of forward and backwards movement.
Yeah.
Or, like Zercher carry.
Yeah. Andrew says, just a reminder to post my squats in the Facebook group. Interesting to see how these squats look like at the moment. Very powerful athlete. Started having more salt in my diet and noticed the change in how I alert them in the morning. It's the salt is you need to go home, or need to go ham on the salt, but it does do a difference. Like it does make it is noticeable. Oscar says, I recently got a rowing machine, would like to use it. Enjoy short, really intense rowing workouts. Would one of them a week be detrimental to the end of beginner weightlifting? No, absolutely not, Oscar. Not as someone who's done conditioning fairly recently as well. If you're playing rugby and stuff, so no, absolutely not. Just don't do them on the same day, or do them after a session, preferably. I wouldn't do. I don't know how I'd feel about intense rowing workouts. I'd probably looking to extend a little bit more, like moderate distance and moderate intensity more.
What I really like for rowing is around 15 minutes on, 2 to 3 minutes off for 3 rounds. So your entire session is done within the hour. It's a nice moderate pace, but you're actually getting into those kind of aerobic training zones. You're not killing yourself. I think a lot of time. So if you see like a lot of the higher intensity stuff, whether that's 500 meter repeats for 10 sets with a minute and a half off in between each one, you're actually getting into that point then where your back, your upper back, your shoulders, your arms are actually starting to get broken down, and you're not really aerobically training, or not solely aerobically training. Now you're kind of somewhere into muscular endurance as well. I think we just missed a few questions.
They're not on mine,
aren't they?
They're after mine.
Oh, that's very weird.
Oh, we did. Weird.
Henry Penrose asks, any ideas about good neck training for props? Yeah, go to the neck training video we put out the week before last, and there'll be some stuff in there. Also, we'll have a neck training program coming out in the next few weeks. Daniel Villabas, I assume this is for you because I don't know what LOTR is.
Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
Return of the King, I think, is probably the best one, but they're all fabulous.
I don't know because I haven't watched them.
Oh, Callum's getting these digs in. Would you ever use a handboard for BJJs or not necessary?
There it is.
Going by this, yes. Yes, I would, and I will be after this.
I was doing pull-ups last week on a girder at home, and they were phenomenal.
Yeah. Andrew's getting blood soon so that you know the score. Be interesting to see. Can you recommend any good weightlifting literature? Thanks. So anything by Roman or a Roman or Vershansky are all great. 2 seconds. Let me check my library. Who else? Yeah, anything by Roman or Vershansky is good for weightlifting literature. Other than that, there's nothing that I've seen recent, nothing modern stuff that's really taken my fancy.
The covers of some of those books look so cool.
They're very cool,
to be fair.
Anything by R.A. Roman or Vershansky, and you'll be good, Rob. Rob, if that's you, Rob from the east coast of Ireland, Bean mentioned your list. Said you're lifting in recently, so hopefully it's going well for you.
Dr. Demographics Ireland says top 3 supplements you'd actually spend money on and isn't total wank. I have 2.
Winstrol.
Oh
wait, what are we talking
about?
What?
Wait, oh yeah. I would say ZMA.
Yeah.
Creatine.
Yeah.
And caffeine.
That's a good list.
I would probably say they're the main ones. In certain cases, in certain groups, I think taurine could replace caffeine. and would be much more effective for that certain group of people. But yeah, they're my kind of three. I wouldn't. It's not that there's not stuff outside of that list that doesn't make perfect sense or that wouldn't work for people, but they're the kind of three, and they're definitely the three most recommended, or the three that we'd probably be asked about the most, or that we'd point people towards the most.
I was trying to think of a different sheet there just because you said those, but you took my three. So I'm not sure if you'd even bother creating. I suppose you can. There's no reason not to, but I don't. But definitely ZMA. Like, ZMA is so good for sleep, it's not even funny. I think I'll take ZMA till the day I die.
I told my barber about ZMA around 6 months ago, and now she tells everybody about it. And
I don't even know if my sleep is normal anymore because I don't take it. I think my sleep is worse, but I don't know if that's what my sleep is supposed to be like.
You're like enhanced sleeping all the time.
It's terrible. Like, what's Skyler says, why do back squats do that front squat? What do back squats do that front squats and deadlifts can't? Lift more weight?
The first thing they do is make you better at back squatting.
No, front squatting. Well, back squatting makes you better at back squatting. Yes, that's right. But back squats, you can just lift more weight. There's no eccentric loading in a deadlift unless you actively encourage it in the descent, but you're not going to get the same positions, different muscle activation. You lift more weights in back squat, which is something that is just very important.
You do significantly more volume at important relative intensities. Like, there's a reason almost all athletes will back squat, and the front squat will be much, much rarer. Like, you can't,
on average, better quality form as well.
Way better, and way better at higher rep. Like, if we talk about volume being the most important thing all the time for most athletic endeavors, you can do that volume much more frequently at much more relevant weights to what you need with the back squat, and you can't do that with the front squat. Or if you did do it with the front squat, it would take up so much of your recovery capital that it just wouldn't really be worth talking about. Like, if you take 5x5 at 75% in the back squat, that's going to be handleable for most people multiple times a week, 2 or 3 times a week. If you do that in your front squat and you're really driving your front squat, that's going to really suck up a lot of resources.
How close did you like to see a front squat compared to a back squat? Usually like 2 or 3 meters away when someone's squatting. It's like, that's as close as I like to be.
I like a 2 meter by 1.5 meter platform with a 1 meter.
Generally, the stats for those is quite similar. Sometimes what we'll see is someone with a back squat stance that has toes out might have a toes forward, or maybe, if we have a back squat stance that's toes forward, we might see them carry that over to the front squat where they have more of a toes forward. But rarely you'll see someone with a toes out back squat getting kind of a toes in or toes straight forward front squat. That'll be just the nature of their build. So closeness to stance, they're very, very similar, if not at all different, I would say. So I wouldn't ever try and change someone's stance. Sometimes you'll see people who will front squat wider than a back squat to allow their hips to sit in closer, and so that lets their chest and upper body stay more upright. I'm okay with that, but I prefer more of a quad dominant than kind of hip and ass dominant front squat for obvious reasons. So I'd like to keep them the same in general.
Tony D says, recently been attending my gym's barbell club for some coaching twice a week. How would you recommend programming around this? Have run the beginner program and purchased the first weightlifting block.
Can I talk about this? I just would say we don't like people mixing and matching programs, especially on coaching stuff. So, and that's not to say stop getting coaching. To be honest, I'd probably recommend
just keep getting coaching.
Just keep getting your coaching from him and do what they say. It just doesn't really work well. It doesn't work well for our program. Well, our program will work okay. So what you could do if you really wanted to run our program is you could run one block over the series of like 8 weeks, maybe. So have like 2 sessions of our weightlifting blocks. You do 1 week over 2 weeks, so 2 days per week to get 1 week done, and then you do his program in those 2 days. If he's a good coach, see if you can get some programming coaching from him. Is what I'd say to you there. The mixing and matching stuff just doesn't work.
No, like if the coach is
messy,
good, it's messy, it's hazy. Like, if the coach is good, right, those 2 sessions each week will be somewhat concurrent in their direction, right? So it's not like you're going to be huge strength bias in one and then a huge speed bias or technique bias in the other. Like, you're probably working on similar things in both of those classes. That probably leaves you realistically with 2 or 3 other idle sessions per week. Just a quick chat and then Timmy, the coach, or Jimmy, the coach, or Gina, the coach, will tell you, oh yeah, look, we're really just working on technique over the next few weeks. Here's 2 things in your technique you need to work on. So you might need to work on not over pulling the clean and keeping your hips back in the jerk dip. Then you can kind of say, okay, these are the common things that are like, these are good exercises for me to do to work on those. And it's very easy then to program in those 2 or 3 sessions. But just talk to the coach would be the main thing. I'd certainly be on Owen's camp of recommending not, like, you'd be better off just sticking with that coach and doing what the coach is saying, because you're there in person and you're definitely there twice a week, you know.
Yeah. If you're there once a week, it'd be a little bit of a different story, maybe. But the twice a week is significantly more. It's twice as more. So Callum is saying best Olympic lifting movement for climbers.
Wait, did we miss one?
Oh, sorry. Florian says, if you run the RD squat program in a low bar squat, would you change any assistance exercises or just run it the same as with a high bar squat? Actually, I double down on the ones in the program already because you're missing some of the stuff that you're not doing from the high bar. But a lot of people have ran it with the low bar and done quite well. So just keep it the same and you'll be golden. I want to say muscle snatches for the climber for some reason.
I'm going to say, so the question is best Olympic weightlifting movements for climbers.
None of them.
None of them.
None of them.
You knew I was going to say that.
I knew you were going to say that. That's why
None of them.
The fact that muscle snatch seemed like a better option than a full clean or full snatch says it all.
That says it all. Yeah. It's not that both endeavors aren't very, very athletic and they don't.
Maybe hang power cleans a little bit. I'm trying to think.
I was trying to rationalize it, but I really can't.
I'm trying to think about the explosive upper back stuff, you know?
Yeah, but the explosive upper back stuff is like this.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't.
I could see
it would be disingenuous of me to tell you something that I don't believe.
If you really wanted to do like touch and go hang power cleans is what I'd say. But I wouldn't really be looking for them. They're just not a huge amount of transfer over. It's just
not.
No, it's not it.
It ain't it. John Burkhardt asks, how to determine the best tempo for the dip in the jerk? When, why to use, and what percentage of jerk volume should I have a pause at the bottom?
The best tempo you should use in the dip and the jerk is the one where you can go the fastest without pausing in the bottom of the dip. So the biggest issue with a lot of see people is they'll have a huge turnaround time. So they'll have a huge dip, and then there's a huge turnaround time in the bottom where they'll dip down, they're paused in the bottom, and then they go. Your dip is like a spring. So the faster you go down and the faster you release the spring, the higher the spring will go. So you need to go down and up as fast and as smooth and as consistently as possible. You want the turnaround time to be as smooth as you can, and you want to be able to change that direction as fast as possible and most efficiently. So the tempo you use is the fastest one you can do without pausing in the bottom of your dip. It's very, 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 very common problem when people dip and drive. So fast as possible. When, why, and to use. Rarely will you ever need to use a pause in the dip, if ever. It's only for very, very specific problems, but I would never be consistently programming them. Oftentimes it just reinforced the wrong problem for people if with a pause in the bottom.
I would say if you were to look at your own jerk dip now, right, and you were to try and figure out you're going too slow or too fast or what you should do, the first thing I would say is that everybody goes too slowly and isn't aggressive enough. The second thing I would say is that the people who go fast enough lose control of the bar, and you'll start seeing this thing where as they dip down, the bar will come away and it kind of crashes into them at the bottom. So if you were to have a rule of thumb, you want to go as fast as possible while maintaining control. Just see if there is a gap here, you're probably going too fast, or if there's a pause in the bottom, like Garth said. But other than that, you need to be more aggressive and more fast.
Have a second daughter on the way. So at number 3 girls to 1. Will the amount of
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Cause my lifts to regress. If anything, it won't make your lifts regress, but it will make you go a little bit crazy. That's what I've seen.
And estrogen is actually one of the most important things for anabolicness.
But men living in a house full of girls go crazy.
Yeah.
Show me one who hasn't. Exactly. You can't name one. Can't name one?
No.
Every man who lives in a house full of girls, like, it's outnumbered. When you're not outnumbered, you always go a little bit crazy and a little bit weird. So just embrace your future strange you know? Just embrace the weirdness.
It's coming.
You're going to lose all your friends.
Jesus
You're going to stop doing all your hobbies. You just won't know, and it won't even be their fault. It won't be the time. They'll just make you go crazy, you know? You start spending time in the attic. Who knows what you'll do? But just embrace it, hot sauce. Like, it could be a new you. New year, new you.
Amanda Stack says,
He could definitely knock out 3 girls though, like, so you could do it, like. Anyway,
Amanda Stack says, any cues you can give someone new to snatching who's having trouble keeping the bar close during the second pull? The first thing I'm going to say is that I'd be very surprised if this issue is coming for your first pull or from your second pull. So when you're saying it is during the second pull, she's asking, yeah. So when you're saying the second pull, the bar is coming away from you or the bar is too far out in front of you, from the knee to the hip, that bar is probably traveling straight up. I would wager a bet to say that as you're pulling the bar off the ground, it's either looping out slightly in front of you, or even if it's coming straight up, that barbell needs to be moving backwards off the floor. That bar needs to be moving back as your knee moves back. Then it's much closer to that kind of center of gravity in that kind of frontal plane. And that's what you need to do. As you pull the barbell off the floor, you need to be pulling it backwards, and it needs to be following your knees back.
Christian, are you saying I should tape them together when I'm grappling, or to leave them separate?
Christian says, I meant when you train, if you tape them like that, you don't get stuck and twist and stuff.
If you tape these two together. But when there's jiu-jitsu, you're going to be grabbing thingies.
I know we use tape fingers together all the time in rugby.
Yeah, so maybe there might be reason to do it.
NC says, if I like doing pause squats, can I not just program nearly all my squats as paused, just like I do my bench? Casual lifter, no sports participation this year.
Yep.
Yeah, if you're happy not to get the best squat you can get, that's just a decision you make. Like, that's absolutely perfect.
Have we watched Invincible? All I've watched is because I went looking for a clip one day, and I watched the bit where he kills all those people, all the other superheroes, and that was gruesome. So that's about as far as
I feel like ye have conversations in here sometimes.
No,
and it's just, what's Invincible?
The Bald On Me Man that's the comic book he's from, or the anime, or whatever it is from.
Oh.
And so I went looking for a clip one day because he had asked a question. I said, Bald On Me Man, and then I found out what it was, and then it's very, very violent cartoon. Very
really
violent. It's fierce violent.
Gladwinner with a 3 instead of an E.
Yes.
Says, I had an argument with my wife last night. She thinks childbirth is harder than transitioning from peaking to GPP. Can you settle this argument for us? Well, having never done one of them and done the other one a lot, I can't really have it.
You've never gone peaking GPP? No, it's listen. So listen, okay? Honestly, if you're right, you've lost. And if you're wrong, you're just better off. So would you rather be right, or would you be happy? You know, that's all I'd say. That's all I'd say. You're never right.
It's your review.
Lucas Kotner says, hey guys, I've had some hip issues. Oh dear. With forced to power jerk some time. My hip is now better. Is it worth to switch to a split jerk? Yes. But you say I'm afraid to re-injure my hip. I would make sure you're fully rehabbed, fully reassessed, done all your tests, retest scenarios, pressed all the parameters that you need to do. Make sure fully rehabbed, and then you can go back to it. Ultimately, for more weight, if you feel that the injury wasn't worth it and you feel like the split jerk was causing it, then you could stick with the power jerk. But just understand that you will lift ultimately less weight in the clean and jerk from that. But, you know, if you're not a full-time athlete and your life doesn't depend on it, then maybe it's better you do split with the power jerk if it does cause those hip issues.
Your friendship is a fog.
Don't know what that means.
I got to the last week of the shoulder press program, then couldn't train due to illness for a couple of months. Should I just restart the program with my old max or max out before restarting? The issue here is that more than likely your old max will be far above what you're able to do right now. So I'd probably do 2 or 3 training sessions and feel it out, you know. If you feel quite strong and if you feel like you could hit your old rep max, then go back and just rerun the program as it was. If you think you're far below it, I would just email us and we'll send you a different program with a different 1RM. If you feel like, oh no, I'm really, really strong and I'll definitely have hit my PB, just do it with the old max. I'd certainly undershoot your input max for the programs.
Dylan said he's a clip of us chanting USA. Just take it down after this.
Yeah.
Gabriel said that he does 10 minutes of cardio a few times a week. What is the benefit of that? Or is he just getting old? Whoa. Don't be showing out just getting old. Holy shit.
Everyone should be doing 10 minutes or more of cardio a few times a week.
Any strength athlete should for sure.
Everyone, yeah. Like the minimum requirement for exercise, not for athletes, not for anyone, is 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week. So that's, even if you're in the gym and you're lifting weights and all that, like, you still need to be doing cardiovascular exercise. So as much as I'd love to rag on Gabriel and take the piss and have the crack, everyone should be doing it.
What are your thoughts on NoFap?
Is this not wanking?
Yeah, that's not wanking. I have no thoughts on it.
It's dumb.
As a front row rugby player, how can I train to produce explosive power after high volume of scrummaging?
You don't do those training sessions right now. So I'm taking this as like, you do a training session and then the next day you want to do a power session, you do a training session, and then after that you want to do a power session. You don't. Like, those power sessions, you need to be moving a relatively heavy barbell very, very fast. So you need to wait until you're sharp and in a good place to do that. For a lot of rugby players, you'll have like 2 periods of playing per year, right? So you'll have September through to December, you might have a small break, and then you'll have January or the end of January, start of February, through to around April of games again. Your main power training will probably have to come in the off seasons there. So in the 3 or 4 months of the summer, or in that maybe 3 to 4 week period in the middle of the winter, that's where the majority of your power work will come in. You can still do your strength stuff, your strength maintenance stuff during the season, but you have to do that really a high power output stuff in the off season when you're fresh, if you want to make good progress on it.
Say power again, like you said a second ago, with 3 P's in capital.
Power.
Yeah. A lot of rugby players asking questions,
filter.
which is great. It's good to see.
Somebody took the piss on the podcast this week, saying another podcast where the lads just talk about rugby.
What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that?
Yeah, but other people ask for a podcast on rugby every week.
Yeah.
Which I think would just get us arguing about stuff in rugby and being like,
no, you're stupid. Daniel Howard says, Good evening, lads. Good evening to you, Daniel Howard. Any thoughts on running the press program with behind the neck presses? Ran it a couple of months ago. Oh,
I would do. Yeah,
I would do that.
Yeah,
that would make perfect sense.
Yeah, that's fine.
I haven't heard of someone doing it. I'm sure someone they will comment and be like,
I did it.
Me and my 15 friends did it. But
yeah,
that would make perfect sense.
Philippe said, "Hey lads, how should I perform a hang muscle clean
aggressively?"
Yeah, literally aggressively, as fast as possible. Main thing is in the hang muscle clean, don't flex your quads. Don't sit down into it. You're kind of creating a false position there. Make sure you kind of hinge the hips a little bit, keep your knee straight to replicate the bar kind of passing your knee in the clean as most people would. And then as fast and aggressively as possible, just turn that bad boy over. Above or at the knee is pretty good. You can do them a little touch and go if you're strong enough. If you're not, hang on and pray to God.
Henry Douglas,
if you believe in that kind of thing.
Great question. If I'm trying to correct a leg strength imbalance, so from side to side, how much volume should I do on the weaker leg? How often should I switch to unilateral exercises? Well, the first thing is, how much volume should you do on the weaker leg, or how much weight should you do, or whatever? None. You do the same on both sides. What you do need to do is you do need to switch to predominantly unilateral strength work. So unilateral strength work, there's a phenomenon in exercise science or exercise physiology called bilateral transfer, right? So if Owen's whole left arm was in a cast now instead of his left pinky, and Owen just had that arm with a cast on here. Oh yeah, you need some power. So he did this arm in a cast, and for 6 weeks he did nothing, right? So 6 weeks he did nothing. He did no work with the right side. This arm would atrophy. Let's put a number of it would atrophy 2 times. If he did bicep curls on this side, it would atrophy 1 time. So bilateral transfer is the training of one side making the opposite side bigger, stronger, faster. It's the exact same with leg press, leg extension, hamstring curl, upper back like shrugging. All of this, it doesn't just happen on one side, the side you're training, it happens on the other side as well. The issue here is that people will have a motor pattern or a system of moving, or they'll have played a sport for years, which will push them in a certain direction of adaptation. The example of that would be like an archer might have a vastly developed back on one side, and then a different part of their back will be more developed on the other side. That's the example of bilateral transfer, but the amount of adaptation work you're doing is really pushing you in one direction or the other. Same with weightlifters, could have up to 30% more cross-sectional area in the front leg that they use for the split jerk than they will in the back leg. So that quad on the front leg will be bigger. But when you have an imbalance in strength, the best thing to do is shift for a period of time to mainly unilateral strength exercises. Make sure you're making both sides stronger, and then you can slowly start to even out those imbalances.
Daniel is saying, thanks for addressing my last question. The video got another one now, though. Would high rep calisthenics for upper body and lower body cycling and lower body strength interfere? Did we do a video on this recently?
Where's this?
Did we do a video on?
I didn't hear what you said.
Okay,
wait. High rep calisthenics, so 200 pull-ups and dips, upper body and lower body cycling and lower body strength interfere. So, I don't think we did a video on this.
No, but when we talk about the interference effect, what video did we talk?
That was with hybrid athletes.
Yeah, have a look at the hybrid athletes video to get a concept of this, but it all depends on the volume of lower body strength training you're doing and cycling you're doing. It all depends on how much strength training you've done in the past, your capacity of strength training, your genetics, what you want to get to, what your goals and aspirations are, what your recoverability is. So it depends on a variety of different things. For some athletes, the answer would be a clear no. For other athletes, it'll be like, Jesus, you can't handle this. So it really, really, in this kind of thing, would depend on what your capabilities are.
Karen Singh has a question.
I feel like Karan, not Karen.
Singh says, in a previous live stream, someone asked about weightlifting on the first floor. I asked my architect about this, and he said a 4x8 slab is made to handle 2,000 kilos of static load. Should I weightlift here? So this is an unanswerable question, right? So static load and dynamic load are completely different. So I could have this coffee cup capable of handling 2,000 kilos of a static load on top of it. If that is then cantilevered out over an edge, or if it happens to be supported on both sides, but it's not supported underneath, that 2,000 kilos of static load might seem quite high, but then my dynamic load of dropping a bar onto it, or the load of you gradually building up a frequency within that slab due to multiple drops of the bar. So as that bar drops, and then it bounces, and then it bounces, and then it bounces, you're setting up a waveform in the slab itself. That over the course of hundreds of reps or thousands of reps will have a huge impact on that slab itself. So if you look at something like concrete, a truss of concrete, like 10-inch by 10-inch box going out of concrete, has an incredibly low strength number, right? So the shear force in that would not take a lot of force to break it. You could have that with a much lighter material, so that could be steel or it could be carbon fiber or something. And now suddenly you wouldn't have that same amount of static load that would be able to take, but it could take a huge amount of dynamic load because it would flex underneath it. So I would say both yes and no to should I weightlift here.
And if you're on the first floor, all the barbells position, all the atoms in that could anatomically match up with the empty space between the other atoms on the floor, and the barbell could pass through the floor, and you can kill someone below you. So I don't know if you should do that.
Aaron says,
going from 130.
Yeah.
Best
Any advice?
That's over 90%, is it?
It's up around there, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, he's getting in good shape. Good luck, Aaron.
What's your advice on body fat percentage for optimizing weightlifting training? I feel strong at 20-22%. I bet you do. But obviously I look and feel better at 15-80%. But recovery and strength is affected. Don't plan to compete soon.
I would say lower.
Yeah. So,
I would say 12%.
So what's
14%?
What's probably what is happening here is at 20-22%. You just have a higher amount of muscle mass, and the more muscle mass you have, obviously, is more contractile value. So you have more strength, more force production. There's kind of a trade-off in weightlifting between having enough muscle mass and then having an optimal power to weight ratio. So ideally in weightlifting, we have the most amount of muscle mass in our weight class with the lowest amount of body fat, essentially, and still be able to optimally live. For a lot of weightlifters, kind of 100 kilos under, that's closer to that 12-14%. Like that 15% doesn't seem like a lot, but it's quite a significant jump in terms of kind of performance. So how much weight you're carrying if negatively affects your speed and your power output. So you want the most efficient power to weight ratio, in terms of mobility. It affects your flexibility. It affects your technique. Obviously, there's the hormonal stuff, as you mentioned. You look and feel better, 15 to 18%. So the 22%, it's just too much. So the goal is, if your ask is general, the lowest amount of body fat with the most amount of lean mass in a weight class is the goal.
Jacked and tanned. So, Elective Throws says, if you guys come over, we can do a throwing video.
Yeah. And we can tear a rotator cuff.
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Oh!
Nothing like a pec tear.
Can you put a splint on that?
A splint. Okay. Turgis Wandril says, thanks a lot for your content. Thanks a lot for your views.
Yeah.
I was wondering if yoga was of any use from an S&C perspective. It seems just a light calisthenics maybe solve a mobility issue.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like everything is useful and has its place, like some forms of yoga might be more beneficial than others. Some forms of yoga might be more beneficial in people who are trying to build stability just versus mobility or flexibility. There's so many different options there. Obviously, something like hot yoga then might be very, very negative in terms of how much recovery capital you're using up and how much stress you're putting on the body, but might be very beneficial in an injury rehabilitation context, So definitely, I think it's certainly useful. There's probably a lot of people watching the live stream today who have mobility deficits that would be very much helped by the use of yoga.
M. Solimanji says, what's the most important factor in fixing butt wink? Usually it's a mobility issue. It's usually a mobility compromise somewhere. So I would start looking at your hips and your ankles as a big one. Internal and external rotation and ankle mobility is usually the main one. They're usually the most important factors for most people. What was up? Supplement? That was ZMA.
Sleep supplement is ZMA.
Or ZMA.
If you're on the other side of the Atlantic, it's ZMA. It's a proprietary blend of zinc, magnesium, and vitamin B6.
Loads of brands do it at the moment.
Yeah.
In general, with supplements, to an extent, you're probably better off getting the more expensive option. And I know that's like almost a kind of a shit way of judging, but you certainly don't want to be getting the cheaper option. The cheaper option is way less likely for you to have quality ingredients. The more expensive option is more likely. Not a guarantee for sure. It could just be upwards pricing. It could be pure marketing, but you're more likely to get a better quality supplement when it comes to vitamins and minerals and stuff like this if you're paying a bit more. So they do range quite a lot. They could range 10, 15, 20%. So I always tend to buy the better ones, and it seems to make a better difference. So that's my main advice on those kind of things. It's a shit test, but it's the best one you've got.
What I also recommend on that, and particularly with stuff like ZMA, is going for the same brand all the time. So when you're noticing a difference with a supplement, the last thing you want is for them to use a different bulking agent or maybe a different capsule or something, and then that to alter your experience or the effectiveness of the supplement. So if you get Olympus ZMA and you just keep taking that ZMA for as long as you can, don't necessarily say, okay, this one's on offer this week and it has the same name in it, so let's just get the same one. I would really recommend being as consistent as you possibly can. And that goes down to your dosaging as well. Daniel Clemens just afterwards says, like, what's a good effective dosage or minimum effective dose?
Whatever the packet says.
I was just about to say whatever the packet says.
Yeah.
I don't do like loading and plateauing. Don't do anything. Whatever the packet says, take that and see how you get on with it.
Jim Holland says, a friend likes using rings for his training base over barbell stuff. He uses very classic instability arguments and says it's more athletic, better for BJJ.
Do you think Jim is like, oh, I'm just asking for a friend?
How do I explain separating S&C and sports? So one of the things with instability training, or when you're training on a surface or training to a medium that is unstable, the research is very clear. You produce less force. So when you're doing strength training, it's all about producing more force. You're doing literally the exact opposite. We know that more load to the same range of motion produces more force, produces more of a training effect. So if you're moving this through the same range of motion and you're doing an object or doing an activity that produces less force, you're certainly defeating your possibility for strength training. So like that's probably one of the main ones. that argument basically destroys most of the reason to use instability stuff as your main form of strength training. If he doesn't understand, just dump him as a friend. Just cut him out of your life. You know, you don't need that kind of negativity.
That's the other thing I'd say. Like, I used to definitely get involved in a lot of those arguments, and I really dig in hard to try and make someone come around to my way of thinking, unless they're directly affecting you. So if they're on your team and they're not performing as well as possible, or if your job is to help them and you're rated on their performance. Besides that, I might drop one piece of advice to someone if they ask me for it. I won't follow up on that piece of advice. If someone then comes back to me again and asks me again, I'll clarify that piece of advice. But definitely in the last number of years, I've heavily erred away from trying to bring people around to my way of thinking, because there's just no point. Like, most people are recreational, or they're not to use the term hobby, but they're not a full-time, or they're not professional. Doesn't mean it doesn't mean a huge amount to them, but if it doesn't directly affect me, I just don't get involved in the arguments anymore.
I was just checking the current quote, but Marcus Aurelius has a great quote. You always have the option to not have an opinion on that. So just, don't jeopardize your friendship unless you don't like him, and then argue him to kind of push him away. But if not, just let him do it. You do your stuff, you get stronger. And if you do BJJ, just beat him in BJJ.
We cherry pick a few.
Okay.
Rob Smith says he's still following the training blocks and he hit 110 and 130 before Christmas.
Nice.
That's great to hear.
Hi lads, what's a good way for combat athletes to get sparring in while making sure they're not losing speed? My understanding is that losing speed during sparring would negatively affect them. So this comes down to your conditioning capacity and your technique and your ability to maintain your quality of movement. So progressively making your sparring training, just like any other form of training, having progressive programming in it. So deciding that each week you're going to add a little bit more, and having sensible progressions is the word I was looking for. Sorry, I couldn't think of it there. So sensible progressions in your sparring that make sense. So only sparring for as long as you maintain good quality, especially in punching. If that's 15 seconds per round, unfortunately, that is 15 seconds per round. Next week, go for 18 seconds per round. If it stays at 18 seconds per round and the rest of your conditioning isn't going up, look at the rest of your conditioning. Is the rest of your conditioning being progressed accordingly alongside your sparring? If all that is going up, then you can push for like 20 seconds round, 30 seconds round. Only go as far as you maintain quality. Anything beyond that is borderline useless, and absolutely in certain circumstances very negative for your punching speed. So the most important thing is maintaining quality. Once that quality stops, you have to stop and reassess your conditioning. You might say, oh, but in a fight, we're going to go longer. That just lets me know that your training isn't adequate. You're not in a good enough shape to be in a fight, is what I'd probably say to that. If you can't maintain close to that quality for the number of minutes and rounds, if you can't do that, that means you're not in fight shape and you shouldn't really be going to a fight, is how I would look at those things. That might not be, the common argument from coaches and stuff, but from my point of view, if you're not ready for competition, especially combat sports, especially striking sports, then you're not ready. And you need to make sure you're in a position where you're ready. So only going as far as your quality allows you to go, then stopping, resting, going again, doing as much as you can under quality, and that may be longer and shorter depending on your ability. PRP. What about... Richard from Vegan Gains said, I recently discovered that I have a severe meniscus tear in my left knee. Squatting feels fine, but the day after my knee is very swollen. It's hard to move. You think I should consider surgery? Not sure if there's any long-term issue I could expect if I don't get surgery for it. What I've seen from people with meniscus injuries is it never goes away until they get surgery. And the good thing is I've seen people get meniscus surgery, keyhole, and it's been fixed. I've had one lifter who got it about 16 months ago, and it hasn't bothered them since. The rehab did take about 12 weeks, I think, to really get back to somewhere good, but it hasn't bothered him since. He had that meniscus injury for about 3 years, and it didn't get any better, and it was getting slightly worse, or it certainly wasn't improving. It re-flared up randomly, even with correct kind of rehab and loading around as much as we could. But since he got the surgery, it did get better. It's very rare to see meniscus stuff get better on its own. It's what I've seen.
In my opinion, and there's obviously different views on this, right? But when an injury is at the point where you're seeing a surgery consultant and you're going down that area, if that's like a labrum tear, if it's whatever, getting a piece of callus ground off a bone on like a distal head or something, in my opinion, and with the athletes I've seen in the same way Gerf has seen them, when surgery is on the table, surgery is usually the only option. Like if it's an option, it's usually the way you end up going, particularly if you're somebody who's pushing things a small bit. Now you'll get athletes like, I've a partial tear in my ACL, and that's like a small bit of a what's it called when the bone fractures off where your ligament attaches on? Something fracture anyway, that's floating around in there, right? I'm no longer playing a field sport where those kind of really agile pieces come in. I'm no longer doing loads of sprinting. Surgery is on the table in that case, and I've decided not for that to be the issue, right? But if you're somebody who's wanting to push things and you're still going down that route, like if you still want to squat and the meniscus is always being an issue and it's always getting swollen, in my experience and just in my opinion in general, if surgery is an option, it tends to be the only option. Like I can very rarely think of cases where I've had an athlete who had to get a wrist operated on or had to get whatever done, and they've elected to go down the passive route, or they'll elect to go down the rehab route. Very rarely will it get better, and if it does get better, they'll still end up re-injuring and having to go and get the operation afterwards.
I think sometimes there is definitely a chance of fixing things without surgery, but I've definitely seen if surgery's on the table, the passive route never seems to fix it. So like leaving it alone and just doing regular stuff doesn't seem to fix it. I think there's some things you can definitely fix without getting surgery, but if your surgery was on the table for stuff, I think the passive route it never seems to, because obviously it's gone to a certain degree. But I have seen good results from meniscus keyhole surgery. Just one lifter was in Australia and he had a great time with it. So if it's an option, and if it's, if you talk to that particular surgeon, if they'll give you probably the pros and cons maybe,
and the bill.
That's the problem, yeah, depending on what country you're in.
Fraser says a Vulcan fracture, and he's bang on.
He's dead right.
Yeah, I hate it when my brain goes blank.
Why do so many weightlifters carry extra fat, power belly? Wouldn't you rather get lean and move less weight? So a lot of them will fill out the weight class. You'll see a lot of them will just have good genetics, so they will, in spite of this extra fat, still be very fast, still be powerful, still keep their mobility. They're the elite weightlifters, so they can kind of do this in spite of it. Would it be better for them if they could take more drugs and carry less fat? Certainly. But a lot of them can kind of do this in spite of. But even in their cases, they would still be better if they had a better part to weight ratio, more muscle mass, and less body fat. The body fat is a product of something useful. So in general, it's just more muscle mass under the fat. It's easier in general to maintain more muscle mass if you are carrying extra fat, because you're in a condition where you had a period of time where you had excess calories, so you could gain that muscle mass and keep it easily. Muscle mass is very expensive in terms of metabolic kind of calories and vitamins, minerals, stuff like that. It is expensive for your body to maintain it. So you need to be justifying to your body essentially in ways through caloric suppress that you can maintain this excess level of all these. But that's generally why.
Eugene Poon asked the question. And Eugene, we have a small bit of semantics to sort out here first. So he says, I'm trying to make a British Isles countries themed meal. Haggis for Scotland, laver bread for Wales. What should the Irish component be? Well, firstly, there should be no Irish component in the British Isles.
We are in the British Isles, though, in geography.
No, I think we're Northern Ireland's in the British Isles.
No, Ireland is in like the fucking British archipelago or whatever.
No way.
It's called the British Isles, yeah.
If there was to be an Irish meal there, if it was a main meal, it would be something like Irish stew, like a main course.
Yeah, Ireland is in the British Isles.
Is it in the British Isles?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Surely we have to get that changed.
No, I'll see. I'll put in a good word and see if we can get that changed.
We'll have to get that changed.
Let's get that changed.
Then if it was to be like just a small little piece, it would be something like black pudding, which is a blood sausage.
What's a laver bread? I've never heard of that.
Laver bread, neither have I.
What would you put in?
I'd say Irish stew.
Jesus, that does not look appealing.
Let me get my glasses.
It's made from seaweed.
Jesus.
No, well,
No, like a lovely beef or lamb stew.
Oh, he got the tear from an E. coli infection 12 years ago. Fuck.
Oh my God.
Jesus Christ. If it's pretending from bend your knee and stuff, I would say
I would definitely.
If it's possible. Evan is saying we should do a breakdown of our first competition with our coach. That'd be so good.
That'd be great.
Obviously, mine might be different depending on this little thingy. But I have a feeling I'll be back.
The owie. I think you'll be back.
I'll be back. Oh, so Fraser's asking about the fat-free mass index of 25. I don't remember these. But I don't remember if people... I can't remember what everyone kind of came to consensus of this, if this was a good indicator or not. I think the issue was they were using their basis for guaranteed steroid-free was like pre-1920s and stuff like that, when training and nutrition might have been up to scratch. So I think it's skewed. So I don't know if I would use MI.
Wait, what's the... Oh, a 25B.
I don't know.
Did he use percentage of body fat? No.
They use a variety of different things.
Okay.
To guess, like an average of what's possible. Natty.
I will say, in terms of what's possible naturally, the outliers make everything possible and everything
fuckers,
impossible. Those fuckers. Like, there's people I would put everything I own on them being fully enhanced and having been very, very enhanced for years who aren't, you know. They always catch it. They'll always ruin your argument. They'll always ruin the rule of thumb you have, you know.
They're like, of all the Instagram influencers who primarily use their physique to sell their stuff, thankfully not. But of all the ones like, you know, Matt Does Fitness, Mike Thurston, Rob Lipset, all those ads, chances are there's surely one of them who's a freak and who is natural. But unfortunately, that doesn't solidify your argument. All the rest are natural. And it just kind of fucks it up because it's shit for that probably one or two people.
It probably is.
But it's unlikely. Right. Thanks, guys. Great questions.
Hope you have a great weekend.
Hopefully you got something from this. We always appreciate that. And I think we do, because people keep coming back and keep asking questions. That's good.
If in the next 30 seconds before you stop watching this video, you could press like, that would be hugely beneficial to us.
James, I was just joking about the angle of where I was looking at your squat. That was just a joke, because you said, how close do I like to see your squats? And I was making a joke about the distance I'd be standing away from you.
Oh, there it is. Oh, there was a question about a weightlifting gym in Dublin, and our friends are just helping to set up a weightlifting gym in Dublin.
In ABS.
ABS Powerlifting Club in Dublin now have a weightlifting section. I don't know if it's open to the public yet.
If not, Capital Strength is the other option.
Yeah, but ABS, ABS, like these bad boys.
ABS Powerlifting will have
ABS Powerlifting have a weightlifting section. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Jesus Christ, this